I am Linda from Poseidon Animal Health, and I will talk more about who I am and our business in a moment. But I just wanted to say thank you for taking time out of your evening and your schedule to join us. Thank you to the panel for coming along. This is a fabulous webinar because we're really focusing on a topic that has so much importance. It's about feeding smarter, not harder. And how does diet then link to horse health and performance? What I know as a horse owner and working with so many of them, that we just want the best for our horses all the time, but we tend to overcomplicate things for ourselves. We get overwhelmed, we change our mind, then we second guess it, we change it again. We always have the right intent, but it can get really confusing. And so tonight, one of the biggest take-home messages I'd love you to have is it doesn't have to be that complicated. Plus, there are amazing resources that you can tap into, which is why it is wonderful to have Feed Excel joining us tonight, and also Dr. Claire Tunis. And they'll share in a moment about their background and how you can tap into them. And Dr. Erin Roddy from Poseidon Animal Health, who will talk right at the end about what we do and what our supplements are aiming to achieve. So I'm going to move straight into, let's see if I can get the slides to move. Sorry, excuse me, Abby. It's not moving. Here we go. It's moving now. So what I'm going to do, rather than introduce all of you, if I can ask you, Claire, just to give us a brief overview of about what you do and maybe why you wanted to be a part of this webinar tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Linda, and thanks for the introduction. So what do I do? I'm an equine nutrition consultant, excuse me, and I work with horse owners such as yourselves, trainers, some vets I consult with as well, and then a few select feed and supplement companies as well, and provide them with equine nutrition consulting services. And I really love helping horse owners. I actually decided I wanted to be an equine nutritionist when I was 14.
Wow.
A long time ago now, because I wanted to help horse owners and I kind of wanted to give back to the horse. And that's why I'm kind of passionate about that. I'm pretty passionate about education. I've worked at the university level teaching equine health, equine nutrition, equine exercise physiology. So I love doing education events. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Fabulous. Thank you for that, Claire. Erin, Dr. Erin Roddy. Oh, we can't hear you, Erin. Is anybody else having trouble hearing Erin?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear her.
Can hear you now. Can hear you now.
There you go.
Fabulous.
There we go. Problem solved. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dr. Erin Roddy. I'm an equine veterinarian. I'm currently living in Ocala, Florida, but I lived in Australia for 12 years, which is how I got involved with Poseidon Animal Health. And I found them, I'm also a show jumper, and I've been in horses, sport horses, and all sorts of horses my entire life. And I was struggling a little bit with nutrition and gut health in my horses, and I was looking for better options, and I became involved with Poseidon Animal Health, and I've been with them for 7 years now. So very excited to be here and hopefully get to know everyone.
Thank you, Erin. And Eira, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi there. My name is Eira. I'm here with Feed Excel today. I work closely with customer service with Feed Excel, but also with the nutritional side of it. I'm originally from Finland, from a teeny tiny village with like 400 people in it, and currently living in Nevada, northern Nevada, close to Lake Tahoe. Here at like 5,000 feet, I think we are in elevation currently.
Wow.
Very excited to be here and introduce Feed Excel to people who might not know about Feed Excel yet.
Fabulous. Thank you. And particularly excited because Feed Excel is an amazing tool that Poseidon has been working with since we first started nearly 8 years ago. I'm really, really keen between the knowledge that Claire will be giving around nutrition, and then you come in and Feed Excel come and say, and we can make it really easy for you. So it's wonderful to have you here. So before we jump into what we're covering, what I'd like to do is just spend some time talking about Poseidon Animal Health. And I also wanted to share that as a company, we love education. We do lots of webinars, but what's really exciting about this webinar tonight is that it is our first webinar in the US, and Poseidon Animal Health actually launches officially today in the US. And we are so excited and so proud to be at this moment in time. And I just wanted to take a moment to share a little bit about us as a company, because we never take it for granted that when people trust Poseidon, they're trusting us with their horse. And one of the things we want to do is encourage horse owners to be more discerning. Ask the questions of anybody that you're working with, because your horse depends on you asking the right questions and being discerning. So very quickly, Poseidon Animal Health is owned by myself and my husband. And what's fabulous about it is we've been able to bring together our joint knowledge and skills and passion. And it's great because what I have is a master's in health education. So education is my thing. I love sharing. If we can help people understand why they should do things, the how's easier. And when we know better, we can potentially do better. And I've had experience being a CEO of a not-for-profit, but what I bring to the table at Poseidon is my love of horses. And we've just mentioned, like Claire mentioned, she wanted to be a nutritionist at the age of 14. When it's in your blood, it's in your blood. And we take this passion and infuse it into Poseidon. So then what my husband brings to the table is a really strong background in animal pharmaceutical, and he is really committed to best practice around manufacturing and all the logistics side of things. So we bring together the knowledge, the skills, and the passion. And the best way to share with you the why behind Poseidon is this video that it goes for about 3 minutes, but I think it really captures the why behind why we do what we do.
Linda, there's no sound.
Oh gosh. Hang on. Well, that's a problem. Okay. It was working before, so I wonder why. Okay. What we might do, we'll quickly see if we can fix it. And if we can't, we will email the link later on and I can maybe talk to it. It worked in the test run. I'm so sorry about this. Sorry, just give us one moment because it is.
So Christine has a bright idea, which says
Okay.
in the share screen tab, make sure the share audio checkbox is also ticked.
Okay, thank you for that tip. Advanced sharing options. Okay. Any better? Still can't hear it? Okay. That's a shame. That's all right. What we'll do is we will send that through somehow so you get to see that. We're just trying one more thing. No, okay. That's okay. I can talk to it. The story is about, gosh, 15 years ago, I unfortunately had a really awful illness. And then through that, I learned about the power of gut health. And I didn't know then, what I know now is that our gut bacteria are responsible for everything we do. And when you are, I guess, really struggling to find solutions, learning about gut health changed my life. So when I fixed my gut health through understanding about feeding the right gut bacteria and how it's also linked to your mental health and your immune system, I became very passionate about it. And it was almost like, how do people not know about how important the gut is? So then once my major health condition was improved at every level, I thought, is it true of horses? And at the time I had an off-the-track thoroughbred that had so many issues wrong. Even things like couldn't get the right canter lead. He would get the bit and then take off. He was having trouble putting weight on. And so I thought, if it's true of humans, is it true of horses? And started this journey around looking at how do we improve the gut health of horses. And it's been the most amazing journey to be on. And what I love is that we are now learning more and more around gut bacteria. But when we first started Poseidon, people didn't understand what the gut was all about and why it's so important. And in a moment, I'll take you through why that is essential. And then we've taken the knowledge, the passion, the enthusiasm, the skills, and created this company that is really changing the lives of horses. And it's not just through our supplements, it's about working with people like Claire and Feed Excel and saying, how do we feed our horses better? How do we educate? How do we keep sharing our knowledge? So the video says that much more passionately than what I've just said it, but that's what I was trying to share, that we're not a company just trying to sell you a product. We truly want to make a change to horses. What I can share is that our mission is the same, doesn't matter what country we are in. So it's about improving the lives of horses through gut health. And not only that, when we improve the lives of our horses, we know as owners, we're happier. It's so frustrating when you have a horse that you just can't improve their anxiety, or they're not putting on weight, or they're scouring all the time, or all those things that go wrong. If we can empower our owners to have this really comprehensive but quite simple approach to gut health, then it becomes more enjoyable. The horses are more enjoyable to ride. You perhaps get better results. There's not that frustration. You're away competing and it's like, oh, they're not eating anymore. So we want to take that and use the same principles upon which Poseidon was developed. It's about making sure that we only have high quality, premium, but science-backed supplements. And again, supplements are just part of a bigger picture, and we'll put that in context in a moment. But we don't ever take that for granted. You trust us. We need to deliver you the best supplements that have science behind them. So we work with nutritionists and vets and microbiologists, and we make sure that we can back up everything we're delivering. I've spoken about education. That's a really big part of our mission, that we want to help educate and make it easier for everyone, and also provide great customer service. So we want to know if you're having challenges, that we're available to support you. But again, give you the right resources so it can make it all easier for you. So quickly moving on. So that's Poseidon. And as I mentioned, today's a very exciting day for us to be launching in the US. We do have lots of people that know us from Australia, and we've had people increasingly saying, when can we get your products in the US? Well, as of today, you can. So that's what's fabulous. So what are we going to cover in the next hour? We are going to cover these different areas. So first of all, gut health. Why is it important? What does a balanced diet actually mean? How stress affects the gut? We're just touching on that one, but it's a really interesting one to start thinking about. And then how do we create a cost-effective and balanced diet? What we'll do is we're going to really try hard to stick to just on an hour, because we understand everyone's busy, you have things on. It may go over about 10 or 15 minutes. If you have to leave, just remember we are recording it. I've mentioned that there are polls that we're putting during it, so we'd love you to join in on those. And what have I got here? Questions. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. We will keep an eye on them. If we can answer them during the webinar, we will. But if not, what we will do is summarize all the questions, and then the panel of experts will then, depending on what the question relates to, will answer those, and we will send all of them to you post-webinar. It may take us about a week, but we will absolutely get that done. So feel free to put your questions in, and we'll do our very best to answer those. Now, just for tonight, this is pretty exciting. Just by registering and coming along tonight, everyone gets a discount code, and we'll have those codes. Some of the codes will be shared at the end, and some of them will be emailed to you post the webinar. So it gives you a chance to tap into these incredible resources. And then right at the end, we actually have one big giveaway pack, about $450. So that is really exciting. Okay, let's get started. What I want us to think about, to get us thinking about the topic, is right now, what are your top 2 frustrations with your horse's current diet? If you feel comfortable, would love you to put that in the Q&A section. If not, that's fine. You can keep that to yourself. And also, what is one thing you hope to learn from this webinar? I'm just going to give you a few moments to think about that, because if you're really clear about why you've come along tonight, that's going to really help us make sure we deliver those points. And if we don't deliver it through this webinar, it will give us great insight into what further webinars might be on. Going backwards. Pardon? I'm driving the webinar the wrong way. So one of the biggest takeaways from this webinar is that if we know diet is the absolute foundation for everything for our horses, that it's time we stop guessing. And I have been very guilty in the past of thinking I knew, and I'd add a little bit of this, add a little bit of that, or may have been in a feed store and saw another shiny package of feed and gone, I'm going to use that. There was too much guessing, and when we guess, we often get it wrong. And again, we have incredible resources here tonight to say that we don't actually need to guess anymore. And some of these comments that are up here may resonate with you, that it is confusing at times. And it's time for us to realize that we don't have to guess anymore. Before we hand over to Claire and talk about, well, how do we feed our horses? I just want to take a moment to put it in perspective and to share where are we at right now. And again, if we understand the why, the how's a little bit easier. This is not about creating guilt. It's not about you sitting there going, oh, damn, I'm doing nearly everything wrong. As horse owners, we have enough guilt. This is about looking at where are we at, what are we doing, and how do we improve this? But if we look at the horse, literally in the blink of an eye, so much has changed about them. They've been around for a long time, and it's been a very short time around domestication. So in terms of the time, we have dramatically changed so much. And what we know is that currently we tend to be feeding and housing our horses to suit us, not them, because land's becoming more difficult. Seasons are difficult. There are so many challenges we have, but it's what is, I guess, suitable for us. And so what that means is their system has not had enough time to adjust. We've taken them from where they could roam and freely eat and have a variety of, fibers and have herd and company to often not having that anymore. So that's been difficult. And we think about that blink of an eye, there hasn't been a long time to adjust to that. We do know that diversity and richness of the microbiome is decreasing. Now, that's a really science word. What we'll talk about in a moment is the gut and the fact that our horses are high in gut fermenters that have these trillions of microorganisms that literally keep them alive and impact on everything about them, as do humans. And what that means is if these bacteria impact on so much that if we get the wrong guys in charge, then perhaps performance behavior and overall health is compromised. So there's been a massive shift. And again, what we're saying is we can't go back and correct all those, but how do we manage it? Now, this slide's really confronting because what we do know is that stress, and stress shows up in so many ways, stress such as incorrect diet or poor feeding or management can create so many problems. Now, we know horses are flight animals. They don't want to show us that they are stressed. And what we tend to do is use behavior as a measure of how stressed are they. And if we're just using anxiety as a measure, we're missing out on the fact that these things are happening internally that you can't always see. So now we know about the gut. We know that stress creates so many challenges. We can go back and go, well, how do we manage that? So what can we do? We know we can't return our horses back to the natural state. It's just not possible. We do want to keep competing. We want to keep going to events. We want to still enjoy them. So how can we try and manage the changes that have happened? And firstly, it's about trying to feed our horses as closely as possible to resemble what they would have had in the past. How do we feed the helpful bacteria to get, I always call it the magic, that they can create? And I'll reinforce this over and over. The right bacteria create a gut that works well, which leads us to the next one. We have to create great gut health, and then in return, we improve the quality of life for our horses. And in the journey that we've been on with Poseidon, the thousands and thousands and thousands of horses that we've been able to have impact on is amazing. You change the gut bacteria, you change the gut, you change everything about them. If I touch on diet, really, really quickly, because Claire will be taking this on, is what is missing in our diet. And again, I'll reinforce this point that what a horse is fed and also the how is the single most important element of a horse's health. It has to start with diet. We know that they're not getting as much access to a variety of long stem fiber. They're not having that ability to graze all the time, and that often essential vitamins and minerals are missing. And flavonoids, which is something that used to be existing in horses' diets, which they don't have access to anymore. I'll jump into the gut very quickly. We use the term gut health. What does it actually mean? Is it a buzzword? Does it, what is the significance of it? The term gut refers to how well your horse's gut is working in the following areas. Now, the gut's not just about digesting and using food. Of course, it has to do that, but it's more than that. And it has to act as a massive immune organ. It's got to keep bad things out, but it's got to be permeable enough or fine enough to let the good things in. And the third thing it does house the trillions of bacteria who absolutely have a role to play in keeping your horse happy and healthy. We have to always think about balance. We want the right bacteria in charge to create the products that we want. Stress can create that shift very quickly. And we've been learning a lot more about leaky gut. How quickly can we distress change, particularly the second part of gut health? And just a reminder, if we look at the horse's gut, we're not just talking about the stomach. The stomach obviously is a really important part, but it is so much more than that. And we know that if you look at it, it is taking up such a big part of the horse's anatomy. And even if you look at around the girth area where the large colon is sitting, we know the gut has a massive impact on our horse's performance. And if it's inflamed and it's painful, it can affect behavior. It can affect stride length, elevation, right canter pirouettes. All those things can be linked back to gut inflammation. We do know horses make stomach acid 24/7 all the time. If there's food there or not, they are making it all the time. And so our horse's gut kind of tells us how we should be feeding them. And so that's why I'm just sort of sharing some of these points. This is something we can spend a whole topic on as well, but it's a reminder that the gut is larger than we realize and has a bigger role to play than we realized. And it impacts on so much. And we could spend hours telling you some of the case studies of weird things that just suddenly improved once we fixed the gut. Now, fixing the gut isn't just about adding supplements. It's this holistic approach that we're about to go into. So very much, we know about the gut-brain axis. We know about these bacteria are really controlling so many aspects. Appetite, appearance, behavior is so interesting because often we'll say the horse is being difficult. Is it, or is it in pain? Is it got so much inflammation? Is it making less of the feel-good hormones because the wrong bacteria are in charge? That is a very quick snapshot. It's a perspective to say we know our horses have gone through such significant change. Some of those we can't go back and repair, but what about the things we can do? And this is where we want to stop the guilt, stop the overwhelm and go, but we can do something about this. And it's about diet, always starting with diet. It's about management of lifestyle, and Erin will take us through later on about different types of stress that appears. And that just because the horse is not showing any behavioral change on the outside doesn't mean there's not significant gut change on the inside. And then finally, it's about using medication when appropriate and also evidence-based supplements. And the term evidence-based is one I want you to take away with you because not all supplements on the market have the science behind them. Okay. So I'm about to hand over to Claire. And as we've mentioned, we always start with diet.
Super. Thank you, Linda, for that great little introduction there. And yes, I'm going to talk about balancing diets a little bit. And while Linda was chatting, I was reading some of your questions and comments and things you're hoping to get out of this. And a number of you talked about being confused about balancing diets, feeding forage-based diets, wondering if your horse is getting all the things they need, dealing with stress, all those sorts of things. And so this is a very brief overview. We could spend a long time talking about this, but what is a balanced diet? And so many of you are probably familiar with this feed pyramid. which is sort of the human feed pyramid. It's a somewhat simplistic overview, but it suggests that we humans should be eating a diet kind of based in grains and the like, and lots of fruits and vegetables, with smaller amounts of protein coming perhaps from meat if you eat meat, dairy, and then on the top, small amounts of oil and salt and those sorts of things. And so when we break all that down, we actually don't have a need so much for apples or a need for bread, right? What we have a need for is carbohydrates and vitamins and minerals and protein. And it's not really shown here, but the big one for horses and for people obviously too, is water. It's one of our nutrients too. So these are our nutrient classes that we want to try and make sure that we're meeting through all the things that we eat, provide us with the minerals and vitamins and protein that we need in order to survive and be healthy. And so as Linda was saying, your balanced diet really is the foundation of your health, because all the little vitamins and cofactors and things that you're eating in your diet make your metabolism work properly. Like they are required for all of the metabolic pathways in your body to function optimally. So if you're missing, say, copper, then a pathway or coenzyme that requires copper won't be able to function properly. That whole pathway now doesn't function optimally. So diet, it really is vital. And if we look at the next pyramid that I put together, we'll see that I kind of took a stab at creating a sort of a food looking pyramid for horses, right? So what would that pyramid look like? Well, we hear over and over and over again, the horses should eat a minimum of 2% of their body weight per day as forage. And that's actually based on research done in the field, probably by some poor graduate students sitting watching horses eating and figuring out how much they were eating. And it's really based on horses, if they're left to their own devices, eating free choice, that's what they choose to eat, right? In a good quality pasture is a minimum of 2% of their body weight per day. And so they need that for their gut to function optimally. So the majority of this triangle is forage. Now, you might not have any pasture, in which case you're relying on hay, for example. Maybe you have all pasture and no hay, but the point is it's majority forage. Then, we need to put in there some of the things that might not be in your forage. And what we tend to miss in our forages are vitamins, minerals, and the like. We might need some extra calories. Maybe we have a horse that's working quite hard and they could eat lots and lots of forage, but they're still going to struggle to maintain weight. So maybe at that point, we're looking for calories from somewhere else. And we tend to look at things like fat sources, and on a more limited basis at some of the more available carbohydrate options out there. And then sort of the very tip of this triangle are, I would classify those as our sort of specialty supplements, for example, and some of the specialty minerals and vitamins. So for example, salt. I'm a big believer in horses having access to salt every day. It's some of the cheapest colic insurance you can buy. Vitamin E, especially if you're relying on hay, because it's not very heat stable. So it's very abundant in quality fresh pasture. But as we know, in large areas of the United States, many horses don't have access to quality fresh pasture, and there's very little vitamin E in hay. Similarly, omega-3 is kind of the same deal. So maybe we're adding those. So this is where you have these targeted, supplement options. And then, yeah, if you're trailering your horse somewhere, if you're showing a lot, moving it around, changing its hay source, all these sorts of stresses that Erin will talk about in a little bit, that's when maybe having some targeted gut health support is also a really good idea. So we're going to take a look at what diets actually look like. But before we get there, what I want to do is just get you thinking about who the heck comes up with these nutrient requirements and what are they, right? So in the United States, we use the National Research Council's nutrient guidelines, which were last updated in 2008. And I remember them being all new and shiny and super exciting. And now I'm like, wow, that's like more than 15 years ago. So they're not quite so new and shiny anymore. But, we do research and we say, okay, well, let's say zinc, for example. How do we know how much zinc a horse needs? Well, we're going to feed a diet with no zinc in it, and we're going to see what happens. And golly, they don't have very good feet. Their skin quality is not very good. They have immune functions. And then we increase the amount of zinc that we feed until those things go away. And we come up with a minimum requirement for zinc. And then we keep feeding more. And it's not super obvious if the horse is healthier or not with more zinc. And then we hit a point where it's like, too much zinc. Now something strange is happening. We're potentially affecting the absorption of other minerals. And we've reached a a toxicity level in inverted commas. And so we end up with this graph that looks like this. Well, the National Research Council's requirements are actually minimums. They're not optimums, they're minimums, but this is what we're working to oftentimes, is making sure that the horse is meeting their minimum nutrient requirement for all the nutrients that we have solid research for. And those of us that work in the field as nutritionists will often add a bit of buffer to try and get more into that optimal range, because let's be honest, our equine research is often done on like 8 horses over here and 20 horses over there. And then we extrapolate it to the entire horse population. And we're doing the research on thoroughbreds and quarter horses. And, you know, you own a fjord and maybe it's slightly different, right? So we kind of try to create some buffer as nutritionists. We go a little bit above the NRC minimums. But as we look at these next graphs, I just want you to have a sense of, you know, we're not always working to minimums. And this is actually from FeedXL, and you'll actually learn a lot more about FeedXL in the next section. And FeedXL has actually kind of done the same thing a little bit, in that it's sort of taken some of the researched understandings of requirements and said, that's great, but in a real world setting, we'd actually like to see a little bit more of that, or maybe a little bit of that. It's sort of a tweak on that. And they've been super, because they've really gone and looked at not just the American system, but the European system and all the different feeding systems that are out there, and kind of come up with a best case scenario of here's what we think a horse's requirement is for all these different things. And I don't have all of them on here. They go on, you'll probably see in a minute, they go on even more. I just cut it off at vitamin E so you can see it clearly. But what I'm pretending here is that I have a typical size, you know, small warm blood, large thoroughbred type horse doing light work, eating that 2% of its body weight of a good quality grass hay. Are we meeting that horse's requirement? Well, we're not doing too badly. We're a little bit low on calories, but, you know, let's say it's a fairly easy keeper, 88% of its calories, probably just fine. If it's a hard keeper, maybe not. We're doing great at meeting the protein, the lysine, which is an amino acid, calcium, a little bit short on phosphorus. But then we get down to these trace minerals, the minerals that are needed in tiny quantities, and we're not cutting it. Right? We're copper deficient, we're zinc deficient. You might be selenium deficient, depending on where your hay comes from. This particular hay didn't test very well at all for sodium for whatever reason. That's a really variable one. And then again, we're really low in vitamin E, because as I said before, we don't tend to see a lot of vitamin E in conserved forages. If this was an average grass hay instead of a good quality grass hay, then we'd also be deficient in lysine, which is a really important amino acid for many, many functions in the horse's body. So the quality of the hay is going to alter what this profile looks like as well. Linda's determined to reverse.
I know, sorry about that. I don't know why it's doing that. Have I gone too far ahead now?
Yeah, you have. Go back one, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a typical, kind of what I see quite a lot, right? Is that people are feeding their hay and then they say, oh, but I've got a trace mineral salt block and that provides trace minerals. So my diet must be fine, right? We talked about the copper and the zinc being too low. Those are trace minerals. But you'll see we've added some trace mineral salt, and I've made an assumption here. I've made an assumption that the horse is licking that block to the point that they've consumed about 10 grams of sodium per day. Unlikely they've actually done that, which is why I prefer to put salt in a bucket and actually give it to them. But you'll notice that we've increased the sodium up to 63% of their requirement. We're doing much better, but we're still copper deficient, zinc deficient, and selenium. And I would argue that in reality, the sodium is probably actually higher than that, because there will be some sodium in that hay. The point being, the level of zinc and copper in a trace mineralized salt block is not enough to meet the deficit in your hay, even when the horse is consuming quite significant amounts of sodium from that block. So that's not a solution, even though your horse absolutely should have access to block salt or other loose salt. So another solution I see people trying is they have their hay, 2% of body weight, they've got their salt block, and then they're like, well, I just kind of give him, you know, 1/3 of one of those 3-box scoops of a performance feed or a senior feed. And, you know, why do you do that? Well, it's a complete feed in the case of the senior feed. And they think that, you know, the word complete means it has everything in it that the horse needs. And it does. Complete feeds actually have all the forage in there as well. The problem is because of that, it's designed to be the only thing you feed your horse many times over. There are lots of different senior feeds. They're all slightly different feeding requirements. But across the board, 2 pounds of a senior feed or 2 pounds of performance feed generally is not going to be enough to meet all their requirements. However, we are now very close to our calorie requirement. And our copper is sort of good enough, right? It's closer to requirement, but we're still low in selenium, and our vitamin E is deficient still. So you potentially have a horse that's going to struggle with performance recovery because of the vitamin E deficit. Maybe they're going to struggle to maintain their top line really well because you need vitamin E to maintain top lines. If you're out there wondering why the heck you can't get top line on your horse with this diet, that might be why. But there are solutions out there. You could feed 6 pounds of the performance feed, which is kind of often kind of a baseline minimum amount that manufacturers recommend. And this looks super, right? All the green lines, check, 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 looks brilliant. But our calorie intake is now at 120% of requirement. So great if you've got that hard keeping thoroughbred that some of you mentioned in the Q&A earlier that you were battling. Not so great if you're dealing with your Fjord or your, Morgan pony or whatever the easy keepers, right? So that's not really a viable solution, even though everything's green. So I would caution you that when you use, Feed XL, pause a moment and make sure that it all really makes sense for the horse you're feeding, because all of this can be green and look super, and you can go, oh, finally, I pressed enough buttons and found the solution and it kicked out, whatever. But you have to know your horse, and you have to be able to say, 120% of the calorie requirement on my body condition score 6 horse probably isn't actually what I'm, a good solution, right? So you still have to think about what you're doing.
Claire, can I just jump into what I think this also shows? Because I use Feed XL all the time, and often people will go, I want to try and save money on my feed, and also my horse is just I can't ride, it's almost unrideable. And the amount of times we've jumped on and the digestible energy has been at 140, 150, 160%. And then we go in and go, well, how do we reach your targets? What can we take out? And obviously forage is we take it all into consideration. So what ends up happening, they have a great balanced diet. It's not costing them as much, and the horse is doing better. So that's why it's such a powerful tool. If we keep guessing, we actually don't know that we can do it better. And this is it just stares you in the face. So I just wanted to jump in and share about how this can help you save money.
Yeah, it really can. And, so here's another, nice green checks all the boxes solution, right? And this is using what we call a ration balancer. This is a feed that's designed to be fed in a small serving, typically no more than 2 pounds per day for an average size horse. And in this instance, I did 1.5 pounds, and we're just below that calorie, requirement. And we've pretty much met everything else, with our 2% of body weight hay and our salt. And so that's what this feed is designed to do. So my point here is that many times over, people have selected the wrong feed out of a brand's lineup to feed their horse, and then they're feeding it incorrectly. And so what we end up seeing is, the person that picked the 2 pounds of senior or the 2 pounds of performance horse, recall that the zinc was deficient and the copper was deficient, and you need zinc for healthy feet. So suddenly the feet aren't looking so great. So then you grab a hoof supplement. And then, some people mentioned in that Q&A that they're feeding many, many supplements and just wondering if they need them all. And oftentimes if they had kind of picked a feed and I get this all the time, I take people's hoof supplements away and they panic and they say, you replace my 2 pounds feed with the hoof, and my hoof supplement with this ration balancer, but he has bad feet. And I'm like, yeah, but you're getting more zinc now from your ration balancer than you were with your 2 pounds of performance feed and your hoof supplement. And that's what's really super about Feed XL too, because you can really actually see that for yourself.
I think, we're a supplement company, but we're saying feed less supplements, because as you get the diet right and the hind gut starts to perform better and the good bacteria make biotin and you've got all your vitamins and minerals balanced, then most likely you don't need a hoof supplement. So it's about trying to get the horse's gut to do what it can do and then go, what are we deficient in? But it's such a great, it's a great visual to see what happens when it's not balanced. It just Feed XL makes it easy for you. And again, as a reminder to everybody, you've got options. You've got amazing nutritionists like Claire that you can tap into. and you've got Feed Excel. So it's not really an excuse anymore to be not feeding a balanced diet because we have these tools.
Yeah,
Hey,
no,
did you have
absolutely.
anything else? Shall I move on to Feed Excel now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to answer questions later when people have,
Fabulous.
them.
Fabulous. Thank you. I think, that guess the takeaway is stop guessing, use these tools. When your horse is deficient, it can show up in so many ways. And we tend to always go as deficient, like if the horse is not performing to its best, we're just going to keep adding more and more and more and more. And then we get overwhelmed again.
And I think perhaps one of the takeaways too is that all of these minerals and vitamins, which seem very, zinc, right? That's a metal, copper, we think of copper pipes. And why can a horse possibly need copper, right? But actually copper is the foundation of all the collagen in your body, and you need collagen for tendon strength and ligaments. And can we say then that if a horse that's been on a diet that's deficient in copper for 5, 6, 7 years, that then sustains a tendon or suspensory injury or whatever when they're 14, 15, is that linked to the diet? I'm certainly not saying it's the cause, but if that horse hasn't had the building blocks to build really strong collagen and therefore soft tissue, it certainly hasn't helped, right? So all these things that perhaps on paper seem like they're not really very important, it's really important to understand they really actually are. They're really important, and manganese helps your horse make chondroitin sulfate, and we're all super keen to go rushing off and buy joint supplements that have chondroitin sulfate in it, forgetting that horses actually make their own chondroitin sulfate if they have the right diet.
Yep. No, absolutely fabulous. Well, that's a great segue into moving on to Etta talking about, why is it moving? Feed Excel. So over to you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Claire, for all that. Okay, we're going to be talking a little bit about Feed Excel. We only have a few minutes, but I'm trying to squeeze everything in. So for everybody out there who might not be familiar with Feed Excel is an online nutrition calculator, and it helps horse owners create and balance horse diets. We are 100% independent and unbiased, and like it was mentioned, all the data embedded into the calculator is research-based, and particularly on equines, which is difficult nowadays, but still it is, we really thrive on that the research and specifically on equine point of view. The main message we receive from our users, but Feed Excel, it's a peace of mind that we can actually balance those diets, and horse owners can get involved and actually learn about nutrition. We know a lot of people might not be so into nutrition, but you have to be a little bit if you own a horse just to get that diet balance and know what happens in the diet. Feed Excel also brings confidence and actually makes it easier for us to take the diets and put it into action at the stable. Feed Excel is a lot about happy horses and healthy horses when we get those diets balanced in a right way, and especially when they are horses that are suffering from nutrition-related diseases. This is very, very important. And it's so awesome to see how many horses we're able to help with the tool. And above all that, Feed Excel is a community of knowledge. We love to share knowledge. We love to learn more, and we also love to learn from our users who are all over the globe. And it's so fascinating to see horse and hay analysis and reports from all over the world and different type of forages and so on. What is Feed Excel really for? It's really for everybody. If you own just one horse, or you have that one pony in your backyard, or if you are a professional rider, you're a professional of any sorts in equine, veterinary, farrier, or educator, Feed Excel is available to every single one who is actually interested about nutrition. You can find the calculator online, like I said, feedexcel.com. We originally originate from Australia, but currently available globally. Our main audience is in Australia and US at the moment. Currently, we have about 40,000 unique members, and all of our members have access to the feed database, which is exceptionally extensive. We have feed database, which is targeted on the country where you're from. So you're only going to be seeing feeds in Australian database that are available in Australia and so on. Little shout out to our social media channels. FeedXL is quite active, especially in Facebook. We have our homepage, FeedXL Horse Nutrition Calculator, and then our forum, which is a public group. You do not have to be an active member of FeedXL to chime into the conversation. You can ask tips and just regular questions about nutrition. Or if you are in FeedXL, you can also ask about how to run the software. So on the next slide, we're going to be demonstrating how to create a horse. You're going to be seeing how the horse profile is created with the calculator. And also we're going to be doing a very simplistic diet with the calculator, just to kind of give an idea what happens in FeedXL per se.
Oh, sorry, it keeps moving on me.
Here we go. So this is the home page when you log in. And here we go. We're going to go straight to the point and create a horse. So when we're creating a horse with FeedXL, we want to know everything about your horse that we can think that is going to affect those nutrient requirements that your horse have. So today we're creating Shadow, and then we're going to select the breed for him. I think we're going to go with Thoroughbred. If I don't, yep. And then we're going to enter the birth month and year. This is very important, so we can kind of know if it's a young horse, a senior, or just a mature horse in general. Also gender. FeedXL does take into account if your horse is in breeding, but today Shadow will be a gelding. And then activity level, very important, like we were talking about earlier. To meet those energy and protein requirements, we need to know what type of work your horse is doing. And body weight is key because a lot of these nutrients and requirements calculations are based on your horse's weight. FeedXL will also consider your horse's keeper status, if it's an easy or a hard keeper, and also that famous body condition score. So if your horse is very lean or to the heavier side, FeedXL will actually help you adjust that energy requirement a little bit closer to the optimum target. FeedXL also has some nutrition-related diseases embedded into the system, which can be very useful, and it will give you tips along the lines when you're building your diet on what will be safe for your horse and what not. We're talking about a little bit about pasture and free choice forage intake. So FeedXL will actually take this into account as well. If you cannot give a number of how much forage your horse is actually consuming per day, FeedXL will base that calculation on hours, how many hours your horse has access to free choice forage or pasture. On this page, you will see the actual builder. So on the left-hand side, you'll see all the options for free choice hay and also pasture. And if you do happen to have your forage tested, you can submit that in and it will be available for you to use in calculations. Today, Shadow will be on pasture. So we're building a quick pasture for him with some mixed, mainly grass pasture and then some legume. You're able to adjust the quality factors and how much different ingredients are in that specific forage that you're actually creating. And if you were to have a pasture that's overgrazed, that's also considered in FeedXL. So it really gives you a hands-on tool on how to create that. And we're just trying to fine-tune those last results as closely as we can to meet your horse's requirements. And next, we're going to actually create the diet. So this is the phase where we can add all those different feeds, ingredients, supplements, if you're using supplements. And on the left-hand side, you'll actually see the extensive feed database. We have a lot of generic forages in here as well. Shadow, he's only on the pasture for 4 to 6 hours. So we're going to be adding a little bit of more hay in there just to take care of that gut health and making sure that we are meeting his requirements for forage, daily forage requirements. Again, you're able to determine the quality factor and how much you're feeding. Next, we're going to be adding a little bit of salt, which is very, very important. And again, you can see this is the American database that I'm working here with. You can see the extensive amount of products that you can choose from. Yeah, there's a lot of different type of salts in here. I think I'm going to be using just the generic one today for this show. And then talking about that gut health, let's add a little bit of fiber variety for those microbes in the hindgut. We're going to go up a little bit with beet bulb as well. And then top off with the mineral and vitamin supplement. Again, very simple demonstration diet, but just so we can kind of see, we're building the diet to the right-hand side. And this is where we're actually able to add the amounts and tweak it as we see best. And you can choose the different units, which is very handy because a lot of different manufacturers will inform recommendations and their supplement information in different units. So that was very helpful as well. Here we have a simple diet, and we're going to go to the results. Next, you will see the summary page for the results. And here you can see FeedXL is already giving us a little bit of a warning, something's off. You can also see the breakdown of the actual diet. And if you really want to chime into those numbers, you can see all of them here. And that famous graph, which is very popular, especially for visual persons, is going to be that next tab. And it's that selenium that FeedXL is saying, hey, you have to go back and fix that. Additional nutrients, very important, carbohydrate fractions, omegas you can follow here. And again, if you are using, for example, a joint supplement, you're going to be seeing those nutrient profiles of the whole diet here. And at the end, we also offer some feeding management tips depending on what kind of horse you're working on and what kind of diet. And also, you can add the costs. I know a lot of people don't want to see these numbers, but it's actually very beneficial, especially if you have multiple horses. We all know that costs, it's a huge thing when we're planning horses' diet. So FeedXL will have you back, and it will give you a daily, monthly, and yearly cost calculated. And when we move forward, you can kind of fine tune what kind of diet report you want to have or print. So you can customize it a little bit here. You can preview and print and email it and then just download it to your computer. You can send it to your farrier, veterinarian, or stable manager if you wanted to have some something changed in your horse's diet, for example. I know a lot of stable managers, they are happy to receive them when it's all clear on paper, how much they need to feed and what type of product.
That's fabulous. It's such a really simple explanation.
It's a lot of information packed into a short amount of time, but it's yeah, it's cool so that people can kind of see how the calculator actually works. Here I just wanted to kind of pinpoint some special features that we have. When you do log into your FeedXL account, there's going to be a resource center on the left side of the screen. This is where you'll find all our blog posts and nutrition related articles. But above all that, there's all of our master classes and workshops recordings throughout the years that we've done are actually found here. So you can access and watch them whenever you wish. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the pink little button. That's actually our chat. So if you do bump into any issues on the way, or you're not really sure what to do, or you really wish somebody to look at the diet with you, we are right there with you. So don't ever think that you're alone doing this. We don't want people to think that they need to know what they're doing right away. FeedXL is awesome because you can always go back and forth. You can create as many diets as you want. So please do go in there and trial it out and see how it goes. There's no pressure whatsoever. And we're going to demonstrate.
I think I'm just thinking. I'm just conscious of time. What was the next?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, yeah. This is so FeedXL is based on a different plans. So we have basic, standard, premium plan, and these are they all carry different amount of features. The one that I showcased today is with the premium plan. You can choose how many horses you want to have your plan and one type of billing cycle. Don't feel pressured to add all the horses at this point. You can sign up, and then you can add horses as you go, and you can also upgrade to a higher level plan if you want. Currently, we're running a 7-day free trial with the basic one, so you can kind of get in there and see how it works, and then upgrade from there. This is just a screenshot of our homepage. I wanted to bring this up because this is where you'll actually go and log into your calculator. It also where you'll find those plans and pricings, and also the Knowledge Hub. This is where all the articles and blog posts are, and they are open. You can access, anybody can access. You don't have to be a member to read them. And yeah, feedexcel.com, just hop on and go onto that free trial and see how it goes, because it really is, if you feel like you need to tackle any nutritional stuff, just get on there, because it's awesome when you kind of get the hang out of it. If you do have any questions regarding the presentation, just email us, or then hop on and write your question on that chat. We are always there 7 days a week at the moment, so that's really, really awesome.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for that. And I can honestly speak, completely honestly, it is an incredible tool, and it's a tool that I'm encouraging more and more trainers of barns. If you've got horses coming and going, this is something you can offer to your clients. We have to stop guessing. Horses have different needs. It's a wonderful tool, but it's an asset. It's something extra you can offer, plus for your own horses. So you make sure the diet's balanced and you're feeding as cost effectively as possible. So thank you so much for that. I'm aware that we are nearly up to the hour. I did say at the beginning we might go 10 or so minutes over. I'm going to quickly hand over to Erin, and ideally people can stay for another 15 minutes. If you do have to leave, we will be sending the recording to everyone. So I am going to hand over to Dr. Erin Roddy to talk about, if we spoke about gut health, we spoke about how important it is, start with diet, then we're going into management, and then we'll go into evidence-based supplements. So over to you, Erin.
Hi, thank you, Linda. Yeah, so I think we've had a really good chat about why a balanced diet is important and some tools to balancing the diet. And now we're going to talk a little bit about why that's so important and what can happen if you don't balance your diet, or if your diet's not where it needs to be. You know, the big thing I think we're starting to realize about horses, both in horsemanship and in research in the last couple of decades, is that horses are very stoic. They don't want to show us their stress. And that's because they're prey animals. In their genetic makeup, they do not show stress. They hide that stress from us. So if you're seeing stress in your horse, it's already extremely stressed. Just because your horse seems calm or not anxious does not mean that it's not stressed. And a lot of the stress that we see in our horses is actually affecting their gut first. So we see negative consequences in the gut. We all know about gastric ulcers. That's sort of the easy one. But, you know, as we've gotten a little bit more advanced in our research and understanding of horses' guts, we've realized there's a lot more going on than just gastric ulcers. A lot of you asked questions about fecal water syndrome in the Q&A and leaky gut. And those are both things that come from acute and chronic stress to the hindgut over time. This slide is just showing all the different things that can stress a horse. I think sometimes we forget, we go back to what Linda was talking about in the beginning of the webinar. Horses are designed to live in herds, foraging, and not doing a lot else. They're sort of designed to move slowly and eat grass. And as soon as we start doing other things, like transporting them, as shown in the photo, like riding them, like competing them, all the different things that happen, we're adding stress to their lives, and that stress is affecting their body, even if they might be standing there quite calmly looking at you and you think, oh, my horse is very happy. So this is just kind of a long list of all the different things that could be stressing a horse. What we're trying to talk about now is how we, as Linda said in the beginning, we can't go back to how horses were. One, even if we wanted to, I don't think that some of our darling competition horses would survive if we just turned them out in 100 acres and we're like, off you go, sweetheart, hope for the best. Horses have gotten very dependent on us in a lot of ways to provide for them. One of my favorite cartoons you know, is showing the horse pulling the carriage 100 years ago, and now the horse is being loaded up in the trailer, and who's the smart one in that equation? But we can manage their stress better, and we can prepare for their stress better. And, you know, one of my favorite things Linda says is when we know better, we can do better. And that's what we are all about in Poseidon. And that's what I think horse people are about, trying to learn better for our horses so we can take better care of them. So now we come to the role of supplements. And, you know, I'm a veterinarian, and I have a lot of people ask me if horses actually need supplements. And a lot of my colleagues will say that horses don't need supplements. And I certainly agree that if your horse is living naturally with a well-balanced diet, they probably don't need supplements. I just don't nowadays come across very many horses that are living naturally. And as we've just discussed, having a balanced diet is really hard. We're going to give you some tools to make it easier. But the biggest question that we had come through is, I'm trying to balance a diet. It's not easy, and it changes all the time. So as soon as we start putting additional stress on our horses, whether that's riding, training, the way they're housed, if they're spending a lot of time in the stable or in a dirt yard, if they don't have access to grazing, if they don't have access to social interaction with other horses, if we're feeding them too much starch or there's going too long between feeding, if we have a lack of fiber variety, if they're traveling, competing, extremes in weather, we're adding medication, all those things start to cause a dysbiosis in the hindgut. And by dysbiosis, we just mean that balance between good and bad bacteria. We're always looking for a balance of good and bad bacteria. And when we start to see that balance shift, that's where we start to see problems in the hindgut. As we spoke about a minute ago, gastric ulcers, that's a shift in pH in the stomach. And I think people are a little bit more aware of that. But these are all things that start to stress the gut, and they can't always be fixed by the diet. The diet is a really good place to start, but it can't always do everything. And the other thing that we'll notice is even if we get a perfect diet and we balance it and we feed it, that's going to take time. And a lot of times where a supplement can come into play is it can help you do things more quickly, whether that's protecting and preventing damage or helping to treat damage that you've already caused or that a previous owner has already caused. A lot of times you get a horse that, you know, has damage and you now need to deal with the problems that have happened before. When we go for looking at a supplement, a lot of people ask, you know, they look on the internet and there's so much information that is conflicting and it's really hard. And even as a vet, it's really hard. So, you know, when I look at a supplement, the first thing I do is I look at the list of ingredients. Knowing what's actually in your supplement is probably the most overlooked step. Every single ingredient on the list serves a purpose, whether that's an active ingredient or a filler ingredient. And once you're looking at the list of ingredients, then you want to ask yourself, what is the scientific evidence behind each of these ingredients? Why is it actually here? What's the quality of each ingredient? Within even one class of a particular ingredient, there's a vast difference in quality, and that starts to impact bioavailability and the efficacy of the product. So just because something sounds good, you know, vitamin E is a great example. There's a number of different types of vitamin E. If you're not feeding a vitamin E that's of a good quality that's going to actually be bioavailable to your horse, it's not going to work in your horse. So you might as well not feed it. As we talked about, and you know, Dr. Claire did a great job talking about, if you're looking at a problem with your horse, if you can solve that problem at a lower level with a good balanced diet that's appropriate for your horse and with good gut health, you may be able to eliminate a lot of your supplements. I do the same as Dr. Claire, the same as Linda has done with thousands of horses. We have a client come to us and they're feeding 5, 10, 15 supplements, and the diet's a wreck and the gut health is a wreck. You fix the diet, you fix the gut health, we can get rid of that health supplement, we can get rid of the coat supplement, we can get rid of the calming supplement, we can get rid of the weight gain supplement, which makes it easier for you, cheaper for you, and ultimately better for your horse. The other thing I really like to look is, are there ingredients in the supplement which are harmful? Sugars, fillers, things like that, they don't have a place in our horse. So if they're in the supplement, you really need to ask yourself a question, why are they in there? And if they're just filling space or they're just trying to dilute the actual good quality ingredients, then I'd probably look somewhere else. The last thing on this slide I think is really interesting, reviews. So is the supplement working, what we would say in the scientific community, in vivo? So on paper, something might look great, or in research in humans or research in rats, it might look great. Horses aren't humans and horses aren't rats. So we need to actually look at, in horses, is this supplement working? And in a lot of ways, that comes from reviews, that comes from runs on the board, that comes from lots of people saying, yeah, I fed this to my horse and it worked. Because unfortunately, there's not the money in this industry at a lot of levels to do a lot of in vivo research. So some of that comes from actually putting their product out there, feeding it to horses, and seeing if it works. So this is our range of supplements from Poseidon Animal Health. So to start in the USA, we're going to be launching our stress paste and our digestive HP. We also have supplements called VM and Metabolize, and those will be coming a little bit later down the track. But we thought we'd start with our two big guns first. So digestive HP is a complete gut health supplement. That means it addresses issues along the entirety of the GI tract. So from the stomach all the way to the hindgut. And it is such a great product. Like, you don't even know where to start with digestive HP. It does everything, but really it helps address all the problems in the GI tract that we cause by the stress we put on our horses. Gut issues present in a lot of different ways, from obvious poor GI health, diarrhea, colic, and poor hoof quality, poor coat quality, the things that you would normally see, horses not wanting to eat, horses having bad smelling manure, but also a lot of behavioral issues. So, horses that are cranky, horses that are girthy, horses that are spooky, or they don't want to do their work, or they're impossible to ride. That can all be GI health as well. And that's something that we need to look at more, is the link between the GI health and how that presents in behavior. I think we're starting to understand that it presents in the way the horse shows itself in its coat and its feet, but it also shows itself in their behavior. And the more that you get your diet right and your gut health right, the more you're going to see good behavior from your horses. So these are the ingredients and actives in digestive HP. And really everything in there is designed to support peak performance and peak condition. So this is going to help your horse process their diet better. It's going to help protect their stomach from changes in pH and from that acid splash. We also have the pre and postbiotics. I know there were a few questions out there about probiotics in the Q&A, and I tried to answer them as best I could in the short time we've got, but really the research supports pre and postbiotics, not probiotics. And that's why we've included pre and postbiotics in our product. We're trying to help those good bugs win the fight against the bad bugs, and that's the best way we can support them. Amino acids are the building block of everything. They often get overlooked, but if you don't have amino acids, you're not going to build good muscle. You're not going to build good top line. You're not going to build strong hooves, beautiful tails, beautiful manes, beautiful coat. And the gut health itself, the gut itself is constantly turning over. And that is your horse's biggest immune organ, is actually their GI tract. All the stuff that goes through their body, it's the gut barrier that keeps the bad things from actually entering the bloodstream. If that gut barrier is compromised in any way, you're going to start to see problems. And it's the amino acids that really serve to keep that gut barrier strong. We had a question about the difficulty in balancing calcium in a diet, and we have worked really hard to make sure that we have the correct and efficient magnesium to calcium ratio in our supplement. And that's something that's really important to look for, because it is very easy. Magnesium and calcium the body sees them as the same. So if you have too much calcium, you're going to outcompete your magnesium. And it's really important that that ratio be correct and the horses be absorbing those things in the correct way. And finally, we have a mycotoxin binder. It is amazing how many problems are caused by mycotoxins in hay and in pasture. And so we really wanted to include that to deal with horses that are sensitive to those kinds of things. Okay, we're moving to stress paste. So stress paste is like HP's best friend. So when you are putting your horse in extra stressful times. So that might be where you're working them really hard. Maybe you're going to a clinic, or you're going to a lesson, or you're going to a competition, whether you're traveling, if you're going to have extremes in weather. Stress pace just gives that extra support to the gut to help them deal directly with the added stress of those more intense times. I love stress paced. I use it all the time. It is just gives you such good peace of mind knowing that you can support your horse when you think that you might be putting that bit more pressure on them. And the difference in stress pace to a lot of other calming supplements, there's a lot of calming supplements on the market, and people ask me all the time, will stress pace make my horse calm? The thing about calming supplements is, if they work, which in my opinion, most of them don't, they're a Band-Aid approach. So they're trying to use things like B vitamins or tryptophan, which again has no scientific evidence behind it in horses, to cover up the anxiety that the horse is showing. And the reason that the horses are showing anxiety, in my opinion, is because we're getting that stress to the gut. So remember, we said once you're seeing anxious behavior, you're well down the road to stress. Your horse has been stressed for a while, and there probably is already gut damage going on. So we created our product to address that actual gut stress and the gut damage, not to try to sedate a horse into being calm, because that's not actually fixing the gut damage that's happening. So it's a really interesting thing to start to think about. You know, if you have a tummy ache, if you're a bit gassy, you're a bit bloated, you don't feel well, and horses are the same. And when we change their environment, when we put them on a trailer and we take them somewhere new, when we wean them from their mother, when we go to a competition for the first time, all those things are scary for them, and that does stress their gut. And the ability to support them in a way that's not medication and not sedation, I think, is really important. And what's interesting about stress pace is that we actually do see horses be calmer on it, and we see them be much more rideable and have better behavior, but not because they're sedated or they're sleepy, because they're comfortable. Their stomach is comfortable. We're supporting that hind gut. And so I recommend people use it all the time. I use it all the time. I give it to clients all the time. But really, you know, if you're traveling your horse, great time to use it. If your horse is performing, whether that's training or actually going to a show, or even after competition or hard training for recovery, it's great for that. And then any major changes, you know, we've just talked about doing, you know, creating a balanced diet. Even if you're changing your horse from the worst diet in the world to the best diet in the world, that is still a change, and that's still going to affect your horse. So we need to support them through that change. Absolutely want to get to that good diet, but we're still going to be changing their body and changing the microbiome as we make that happen. And so supporting them with nutraceuticals and with stress pace is going to really help make that change smooth for you. And you're not going to see a lot of, you know, changes in manure. We had a lot of people ask about runny manure or smelly manure. That's an indication that your hindgut is in dysbiosis. If you're seeing bad quality manure, you need to look at your hindgut, and that is your horse's way of telling you, my hindgut is not happy. Also, as a veterinarian, I love stress pace in conjunction with medications. You know, we do have to use medications in horses, and I think we're learning more about how that does affect the microbiome. And I think anything we can do in a natural way to support and protect them through the use of medication is really important, and certainly makes me feel a lot better when I'm medicating a horse, knowing that I'm challenging the microbiome. So stress-paced ingredients. Again, we just talked about looking at our ingredients list. All of the things in stress pace are natural. So it's completely show safe. And you can use it anytime you want. It is not, I always get asked, can I use it with this medication? Can I use it with that medication? Absolutely. It will not conflict with any medications. You can use it with sedation. It's completely natural product and designed to be used in those situations. And it's just got all the great things in it. Magnesium, we talked about. Pectin is a fabulous ingredient that a lot of people haven't heard of. Pectin actually helps to coat the stomach and creates a really beautiful alkaline slime with magnesium that protects the stomach from acid splash and also helps maintain a correct pH. It's got our good friends, the amino acids. Again, whenever we're stressing the hindgut and the microbiome, we need amino acids. Betaine is actually an osmolyte, so that helps. I don't know if people know this, but when you're not feeding your horse, if you're working your horse or you're traveling the horse and they're not being fed, the blood actually is diverted away from the GI tract because the body goes, oh, there's no food in the GI tract, so I'm going to move my blood to another place. When that happens, fluid is actually sucked out of the gut. And that's why when your horse gets off a trailer after a long time, they look what we would call tucked up, right? Because the fluid has actually been sucked out of the gut. What betaine does is it helps retain the fluid in the gut. So you actually keep that hydration status in a horse when they might not be eating for whatever reason. Obviously, we've got our pre and postbiotics that we spoke about to support our good guys. And then B vitamins. B vitamins are something that can really go downhill in a horse when they're stressed. They stop making as much B vitamins as they can. And so we're just replacing that for them. And then our antioxidants, vitamin C and vitamin E, that help both with your muscle and nerve tissues. And then they also help with your immune system in a stressed horse.
And Erin, I think you've already touched on the fact that HP is for that everyday gut support. There's some questions coming through saying, is HP for horses that have a gut problem or for horses for preventative? And it's both. It's about understanding, going back to what you said before, the gut is so important and it's so sensitive to change. The more we can create a foundation every day, the less that significant stress will have an impact. But stress paste is for that reason. And there is nothing like stress paste anywhere. It's such a cool product. So ideally, you as it says down the bottom, you use it in conjunction with an everyday gut product like Digestive HP. But it's stress paste is fabulous for hot days, for changes in weather, all the things that you've mentioned, Erin, and there's such extreme weather constantly. We forget how much that impacts on our horses.
Absolutely. Yeah. So stress paste is your daily, support, protect, and prevent in the gut. And then stress paste is that extra help when we know, okay, we're going to put even more pressure on our horses today for whatever reason. Then the stress paste actually just takes up that extra little bit of buffer against that pressure for the horse.
Erin, it's so wonderful listening to you speak, particularly as a veterinarian, that you've been on the journey with us, understanding gut health. And you can see why we are so fortunate to have Erin as part of our team at Poseidon, particularly as part of the US launch, because the knowledge and the experience that she has around this is just exceptional. And we are so fortunate to be able to take that knowledge, particularly as a vet, to see how it works with more of a traditional approach with dealing with challenges that our horses have. So thank you so much for sharing all that. We are literally a few minutes away from finishing. So thank you for everyone that's been staying with us. And this is just, Erin, do you want to talk about these before I take over?
Oh yeah, sorry. These are just some reviews that we've had from some of our more elite level riders that have been with us for a while and using our products for a while. And certainly, in our more elite level performance horses, we are really putting a lot of stress on. These horses are traveling a lot, they're competing a lot. We're asking them to be at their peak, and those horses definitely need gut support. But I have to tell you, almost every horse I interact with, and certainly the questions that we see coming through, gut health is just not something that we've understood, I think, up until very recently. And luckily, we're starting to see some great input from, things like FeedXL. I've used FeedXL for more than 10 years now, and it is a great tool. And nutritionists like Claire, I love listening to people like that and learning from them. And I think we're really starting to understand how our horse works and how we've sort of maybe not done the best things by them up till now because we didn't know, but now that we can educate ourselves and we can help our horses do better, it is just amazing. What I always like to say, it's amazing what horses do in spite of us, all the things we do wrong, and they still do so well by us. And then when you can make these improvements and do the right thing by them, I mean, horses just are the most amazing animals, what they'll keep giving and how they'll keep performing. So that's why I'm really passionate about gut health, because I've seen the changes that it makes in horses, and I just get so rewarded all the different people that we meet and interact with and we can help, and then their horses just blossom and bloom, and it never gets old. Seeing shiny coats and pricked ears and happy riders and horses, never get sick of it.
Yeah, we are very, very privileged to be on this journey, aren't we? And I mentioned earlier how proud and excited we are to be launching in the US today, and to have this webinar tonight and have you all join us and to be able to share that. And we always learn from each other. You know, I learned something today from, you know, I've used Feed Excel for so many times, never noticed a chat button in the right-hand corner. And then Dr. Claire was talking about, you know, that we use joint products that the horses can actually make some of those ingredients. You never stop learning, and that's what's exciting. As a company, Poseidon loves collaborating. We love sharing. We want to work together. We want to deliver information and educational webinars that are of purpose and of value. So again, when we're about to finish, but we'll send through a post-webinar poll, please tell us what you would like us to talk about. Performance horses and stress is something, you know, we love to share more about. Even looking at why is the gut important? Why do we want to make sure the good bacteria are in charge? They make most of your horse's energy, plus the B vitamins for appetite and behavior and hoof. And there's so much to it. So we have a lot of knowledge and passion that we love to share. And then working with key people in the United States that we can keep learning from each other. So please share your thoughts and your ideas, and then we can try and meet them as best we can. So as we finish up, again, thank you for staying with us right to the end. And as I mentioned earlier, there will be a discount code for the different organisations involved. I'll share some of those in a moment. But we do have one winner who will win a £10 digestive HP that Erin spoke about, a stress paste, a 1-year membership to Feed Excel. I mean, this is an amazing prize. And a Q&A consultation with Dr. Claire at Clarity Equine Nutrition. Like, what an amazing, amazing prize for someone. What would be amazing? The winner, we'll follow you on your journey and see how it all goes, but clearly reach out to us and ask, how do you use these resources effectively? So the winner is Catherine Dollinger, I think it's Dollinger. So thank you, well done. We will reach out and connect those prizes to you. If you're still here, give us a shout out, give us that's fabulous, a thumbs up. And for everyone else, so this is where to find us. So if you want to jump on our socials, clearly Poseidon Animal Health is based in Australia, but our social pages are, we're in New Zealand as well, now in the US. Come and join us, share your stories, jump on everyone else's socials and engage, ask your questions. We are very committed to giving the right information. You would be aware there are some social groups perhaps don't have vet to nutritionists providing correct information. We want to stop myths and misinformation. So come along and join us. And lastly, here is the code for the Poseidon Animal Health products. As to the website has gone live tonight. So let's hope it plays nicely with us as we start taking the first orders. And I know that Feed Excel and Clarity Equine Nutrition will email you their code as well. So again, thank you so much. Thank you to our panel. Like, you've been so generous with sharing. And I know it's been challenging delivering in such a short amount of time. I think we did really well. And people are already sharing that they found the webinar useful. That is fabulous. And hopefully there's more confidence. And if you're not feeling completely confident yet, that is okay. You now know you've got resources to tap into. So again, thank you everyone for your time. We are looking forward to working more with you, and have a great night, everyone. Goodbye. Now I'm going to learn how to turn it off. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.